Today I'm going to be taking broken French doors that I was going to repair and use for a closet on a rental, but then I found the old door in the shed of the rental property and I just put that on. So I wound up with those and old lattice board that was thrown out because it was all cracked and broken up. And so I'm just going to cut out the cracked and broken part. I'm going to completely take apart the French doors and we're going to build a garden gate for a vegetable garden. And I'm also going to use the hinges on the French doors to hold the gate up, and other hardware I just have laying around the house to use for ledge. So yeah, I'm ready. Let's get to it. Yeah, some people call these plantation doors, other people call them louvered doors, and other people call them bifold doors. It doesn't really matter, you get the point. And the first thing we have to do here is take off the hinges and break this door into two manageable pieces. I think now that the doors are separated, they each have a vertical piece of wood going up both sides. We're going to cut these pieces of wood out and we're going to use them for the frame of our gate. So we need a total of 4. 2 for the top and bottom and 2 for the sides. And that scratched up stuff that you see at the top, that will all be cut out, and I'll still have plenty of room to get the gate done. And these are 1x2s, and they're hardwood and they're stained, and so this way they will hold up in outdoor conditions. If you just use 2x4s, from Lowe's or Home Depot, it might look good for a while, but after a couple years out in the weather, depending on where you live, they're going to start rotting away. And this one here broke at the top, but the bottom of this piece is long enough to fit on either the top or the bottom of the gate. And this cutting blade's all worn out, and you can see I'm struggling with it, so I'm changing it right now to a much better blade that just goes through this wood like butter. Now, I installed those 4x4 posts about a week ago, and they're about 14 inches in the ground, and they're cemented there, and I made absolutely certain that they were perfectly vertical. And because they're vertical, I can cut the new gate absolutely square, and I don't mean that in a literal sense. The gate is actually rectangle, and I'll explain that in a minute. I can just make my measurements at the top and bottom exactly the same, and I can make it at the sides exactly the same. The gate is going to be longer at the sides than it is at the top and bottom. The sides are 50.5 inches and the top and bottom are 43.5 inches. And I always go slightly long on my first cut because you can always cut more off, but you can't put it back on. And now we're going to start screwing it together. The frame is turned sideways and put together, so I can just screw it in without using biscuit joiners and all that stuff. But still, this bare frame has to be reinforced, and I want to show you how we're going to do that when we get to it. And we'll be using 2 screws at each corner, and anytime you're about to use screws, you should drill a pilot hole that's much thinner than the actual screw itself, and this will make the process so much easier. So the gap here is just going to be taken over by the lattice board, so that's not going to be a big problem. So I thought about cutting this diagonal, but that would have been kind of stupid. We'll just let the lattice board hang down a little bit more on this side. So we're going to have to hinge this over here on the right, and then it looks like it's going to be a little bit too long over here. So once that's hinged, we'll take this apart and cut a little bit more of these cross members off to give it a nice snug fit. And we'll go from there. Now, because the wood I'm using is pretty light and the lattice board is light also, and because the sides are longer than the top and bottom, I'm almost certain I can get away with using these small hinges from the French door. But if you're building it a heavy-duty gate for, like, say, a ranch or a farm or something like that, and your top and bottom is longer than your sides, you're not going to be able to get away with using these small hinges. Your gate's going to sag on you, so you're going to have to come up with much longer hinges. Now, as you can see, my gate is sagging a little bit, and it's kind of flimsy, and that's because we haven't put the supports in the middle of the frame. One will go diagonal, and 2 will go horizontal. And you'll see what I mean. We're about to get on it in a minute. We have to take this end off and unhook it, and then we're going to have to cut maybe a 1/2 inch off this piece here. And we have to do that top and bottom just so it fits right into here. And I was just gonna, take this one piece apart and cut it to fit while it was on the hinges right there. But then I just decided to disconnect the whole thing and take it to the other side of the house and do both the diagonal cross member and cut it to fit while it's off the gate. And this door is what I'm using to make the cross members and supports. The best made gates that I looked at had the support here at the bottom of the hinge side and at the top of the latch side. And I wasn't real sure at first until I looked at a couple of pictures, so I'm sticking with the best made gates that I've seen. Does it matter? I don't know. You're going to have to ask an engineer, and I'm not an engineer. But first I'm going to cut it to fit so I can cut the cross member to fit. You're going to mark the exact center of the board, and you're going to make two 45-degree cuts, one from each side, and those cuts should meet in the exact center of the board to form a point. And that point should fit perfectly into the corner of the frame. Now, I was going to do the other side the same exact way, make it a point, but after making that first 45-degree cut, I decided it fit perfect. And I tested it, and the frame was much more rigid and more strong. It was perfect, so I just decided to leave it all enough, just like that. Screw it in, and you should wind up with a very strong frame of a gate. Now there's two horizontal cross members that still go on here, but I'm going to go ahead and rehang this gate and then install the lattice board because I'm not real sure. There's two pieces of lattice board, so I don't know exactly where the seam is, but where that seam is, where they come together, is where I want one of those cross members. And as you can see, it's not hitting the post, it's hitting that chicken wire. So at the bottom of the post, I'm going to take all that chicken wire off and it should fit perfect. What's causing this to pop out like this, which is kind of cool, is the fencing behind this piece. See it flexing down there? And here I am installing the latch, and I was just going to cut the lattice board around the latch, but later on I decided that it would look better and function better if I put the lattice board on first and then install the latch over top of the lattice board. This lattice board was purposely cut big to overhang on the left hand side, and then when I get it installed I'll just run a saw blade straight up the left side of the frame, and that will give us a perfect fit. Here I'm just reinstalling that latch on the outside of the lattice board, and it's no big deal because the pilot holes are already drilled and threaded and everything else into the wood. I just have to drill holes into the lattice board again. I overlapped the lattice board in some areas because one of the pieces was not cut straight, so I had to let it overlap, and then I will come back with the jigsaw and just cut the overlap off. And now we're getting the horizontal cross members together, and now there's two of them. And these will be installed on the inside of the gate. I'm just using the outside of the gate to get the correct measurement. And again, I'm cutting these at a 45-degree angle to fit around the horizontal cross member. But it's not going to be exactly 45 degrees. But anything close enough is going to be good, so I'm not really getting real nitpicky with these. And the top one will be installed, like I said, right between where the top and the bottom lattice board come together. And this way, I'll be able to screw both pieces of lattice board into the same cross member. So if we have a storm and it's really windy, these won't crack or break or fly off. And we also need one at the bottom where the bottom lattice board ends. I messed up on one of the pieces and I cut it too short, so we're going to use this last piece to do it again. This lattice board is a little heavier than you might think. It's causing a little bit of weight on this part of the gate, which is causing it to just hit the concrete enough to stop it. So we need to cut a little piece off. I'm going to cut a little piece off at the bottom. If you like the idea of repurposing stuff, you're not alone. There's millions of people who love this idea and actually utilize this idea. But there's things that you have to be careful with. My best advice is to have the idea first and then go out and just keep your eyes open for that product, or to let the sighting of the product inspire an actual real idea, and then take that product home and get right on it and start utilizing that repurposing thing. So if you just start taking home, all kinds of stuff, hoping that it'll inspire an idea, you're going to wind up on hoarders and people are going to make fun of you. Because the problem is anything can be repurposed and used for something else. Think of things that are commonly thrown out because they break or, whatever. And then brainstorm a way that product can be used for something else. And then just keep your eyes open for that product. A good tip is to find out when trash day is in certain neighborhoods that you might be interested in. And then get ahead of the trash people and just comb that neighborhood for what you're looking for. Repurposing is often like playing musical chairs, to show you what I mean. Here's my current sandpaper shelf, right? But I have all these pieces left over from the French doors. So I'm using these to make a new sandpaper shelf, about 1 foot wide and going straight up this wall, which will take up a whole lot less room than that. I was never happy with that. And I want to use that to make a very organized battery charging area for all my power tools and phones and stuff. And this I'm also going to be using to make that sandpaper shelf. So that's a very unorganized battery charging station. Yeah, so it's interesting that by the time this is over and I do all that, I will have used every single piece of wood and hardware from those French doors. And this room will be a whole lot more organized. Sometimes that's the way it works. You already have something, but you have a better idea to make it better. So yeah, that's my next project. And of course, it'll all be on video and on YouTube as soon as I get it done.